The national debt of the United States is above $35 trillion and is increasing at a rate of over $1 trillion per 100 days. That's more than $15,000 owed per taxpayer nationwide. While Washington continues printing money and Wall Street fuels speculation, millions of ordinary Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, just one emergency away from financial disaster. Entire states are already crumbling under the weight of pension crises, bankrupt hospitals, failing school systems, and shrinking populations. When the next recession hits, some states won't just struggle, they will collapse entirely. In this report, we reveal the 10 U.S. states that will collapse first if the economy crashes. These are the states most likely to implode during a financial crisis, leaving residents facing massive unemployment, housing market crashes, and soaring taxes. If you've been wondering which U.S. states will collapse first in a recession, or even which 10 states could collapse in 2025, this analysis exposes the warning signs you need to watch right now. Number 1. Hawaii. Paradise on the brink of collapse. Hawaii may look like a tropical paradise, but for residents, it is quickly becoming one of the most unaffordable places to live in America, and one of the 10 U.S. states most likely to collapse first if the economy crashes. The median home price now exceeds $850,000, while median household income sits at just $88,000. For most families, homeownership is out of reach, with down payments requiring nearly a decade of saving. Hawaii also has the highest cost of living in the nation. Groceries, gas, and utilities cost nearly twice as much as on the mainland due to the state's heavy dependence on imports. A gallon of milk often costs $6 or more, and gas regularly exceeds $5 per gallon, pushing working-class families to the financial breaking point. The economy leans heavily on tourism, which makes up nearly 30% of Hawaii's GDP. The pandemic revealed how fragile this is, with visitor arrivals plunging over 70% in 2020 and state revenues collapsing. Another global recession, natural disaster, or geopolitical shock could devastate the islands again. Meanwhile, native Hawaiians are leaving in record numbers, forced out by skyrocketing housing costs and vacation rental conversions. Rural areas face doctor shortages and limited hospital access, while the state imports nearly 80% of its food, leaving it dangerously exposed to supply chain disruptions. Without bold reforms, Hawaii's economy risks becoming a playground for the wealthy and unlivable for working families, a paradise poised for collapse when the next crisis strikes. Number 2. Michigan, a Rust Belt state on the brink. Michigan is often celebrated as a comeback story after the 2008 crash, but the truth is far more fragile. Beneath Detroit's revitalized downtown and Ann Arbor's tech boom, Michigan remains one of the 10 U.S. states most likely to collapse first if the economy crashes. The state is still dangerously dependent on the auto industry, with nearly 20% of its GDP tied to manufacturing, leaving it vulnerable to global supply chain disruptions and recessions. Household finances reveal deep strain. Over 40% of Michigan residents report financial distress from overdue bills, medical debt, or loan defaults. The state's median household income, around $63,000, lags behind the national average, while poverty rates in Detroit remain above 30% in some neighborhoods. Population decline is accelerating. Between 2020 and 2024, Michigan lost more than 100,000 residents as families moved south and west. This exodus shrinks tax revenue, leaves behind aging populations, and worsens urban blight, with 21% of Detroit's homes sitting vacant. Michigan's infrastructure is crumbling. Nearly 45% of roads are in poor condition, requiring over $7 billion annually for repairs, and lead contamination remains a public health threat far beyond Flint. Healthcare and addiction issues intensify the crisis, with opioid overdose deaths doubling over the past decade and rural hospitals closing at alarming rates. Another downturn in auto sales could wipe out tens of thousands of jobs, triggering foreclosures and another housing market crash. Without urgent diversification, Michigan's fragile recovery could collapse, dragging the state back into a full-blown Rust Belt recession. Number 3. Illinois, America's pension bomb ready to explode. Illinois tops the list of the 10 U.S. states most likely to collapse first if the economy crashes, with a financial crisis so severe it threatens the state's survival. The heart of the problem is the $139 billion pension shortfall, the largest in the nation, equal to nearly $11,000 for every resident, including children. This massive liability has pushed Illinois' credit rating to just above junk status, driving up borrowing costs and forcing the state deeper into debt with every downturn. As debt grows, basic services are slashed. Public schools, healthcare programs, and infrastructure projects are chronically underfunded. Meanwhile, property taxes are among the highest in the nation, averaging 2.2% of a home's value annually. On a $300,000 home, that's more than $6,600 a year, driving thousands of residents to leave the state. In 2024, Illinois lost over 83,000 residents, one of the largest population declines in the country, and many of those leaving are higher earners, further eroding the tax base. Outside of Chicago's thriving business district, much of Illinois struggles with declining manufacturing, hollowed-out small towns, and underfunded schools. Nearly 2,400 bridges are structurally deficient, and infrastructure repairs are repeatedly delayed as funds are diverted to cover pensions and debt service. When the next recession hits, Illinois faces plunging tax revenues and fixed pension obligations that cannot be reduced. The result could be massive service cuts, higher taxes, and an accelerated exodus, pushing the state toward financial implosion. Number 4. Louisiana, a state on the front lines of collapse. Louisiana is battling crises on every front, making it one of the 10 U.S. states most likely to collapse first if the economy crashes. Nearly 19% of residents live below the poverty line, almost 900,000 people, giving Louisiana one of the highest poverty rates in the nation. Median household income sits around $56,000, near the very bottom nationally. The economy is dangerously dependent on oil and gas, leaving the state trapped in a boom-and-bust cycle. When energy prices dip or renewable energy policies shift, Louisiana's economy suffers immediate job losses and revenue shortfalls. Diversification has been slow, and the decline is visible in shuttered factories, empty plants, and dying small towns. Natural disasters intensify the crisis. Hurricane Ida caused $75 billion in damages in 2021, crippling homes, businesses, and infrastructure. Louisiana lacks the reserves to rebuild quickly, meaning each storm season resets progress. Coastal erosion is swallowing a football field of land every 100 minutes, threatening entire communities. Infrastructure is in free fall. Over 1,500 bridges are structurally deficient, and levees, roads, and water systems require billions in upgrades the state cannot afford. Baton Rouge and New Orleans face constant flood risk, raising the stakes even higher. The state also suffers a severe brain drain, with over 70% of LSU graduates leaving within 5 years. Combined with population stagnation, declining healthcare access, and hospital closures, Louisiana is on a collision course with systemic collapse, financially, socially, and even geographically. Number 5. Nevada, a high-stakes economy on the edge. Nevada's glittering Las Vegas Strip hides one of the most fragile economies in America, making it one of the 10 U.S. states most likely to collapse first if the economy crashes. Nearly 30% of Nevada's workforce depends on tourism, hospitality, and gaming, industries that are the first to suffer in a downturn. When visitors stop coming, Nevada's economy grinds to a halt. The job market proves its volatility. Nevada consistently ranks among the most unstable labor markets in the nation, with unemployment swinging rapidly. During the Great Recession, unemployment topped 13%, the highest in the U.S., and tens of thousands never recovered. Housing is equally risky. Nevada was one of the hardest-hit states during the 2008 crash, posting the second highest foreclosure rate in the country. Home prices have surged more than 40% since 2020, pushing the median Las Vegas home above $450,000, far outpacing median household income of $72,000. Another downturn could easily trigger a new foreclosure crisis. Outside of Las Vegas and Reno, rural Nevada faces population decline, limited healthcare access, and collapsing local economies. Infrastructure is deteriorating, with 20% of bridges rated structurally deficient and water scarcity threatening the state's long-term survival as the Colorado River system hits record lows. Nevada has no state income tax, relying heavily on tourism-driven revenue, which collapses during recessions. The next economic downturn could gut Nevada's budget, slash public services, and send the state into a full-scale economic meltdown. Number 6. Alabama, a state on the edge of systemic breakdown. Alabama may celebrate its cultural heritage and football dominance, but beneath the surface, it's one of the 10 U.S. states most likely to collapse first if the economy crashes. With a median household income of $59,000 and nearly 16% of residents living below the poverty line, almost 800,000 Alabamians struggle just to get by. Education remains Alabama's Achilles heel. Ranked consistently among the bottom 5 states in education, its public schools face chronic underfunding, teacher shortages, and low graduation rates. Only 27% of adults hold a bachelor's degree or higher, well below the national average. This talent gap drives young professionals to leave for better-paying jobs in states like Georgia and Texas. Healthcare is in crisis. Alabama's refusal to expand Medicaid has left nearly 300,000 residents without coverage, fueling a wave of rural hospital closures, more than 15 since 2010. The state's infant mortality rate is among the highest in the nation, and life expectancy is 3 years below the U.S. average. Infrastructure is crumbling. Over 16% of bridges are structurally deficient, roads are deteriorating, and rural broadband access is limited, restricting economic growth. With one of the thinnest rainy day funds in the country and heavy reliance on industries like aerospace, automotive, and agriculture, Alabama is dangerously exposed to recessions and global trade disruptions. The next economic downturn could lead to school closures, hospital service cuts, and entire communities stranded, pushing Alabama to the brink of systemic failure. Number 7. Kentucky, a state trapped in economic decline. Kentucky is a stark example of what happens when major industries collapse and nothing takes their place. Once powered by coal, the state has seen coal jobs fall by more than 60% since 2010, leaving entire Appalachian counties with unemployment rates well above the national average. The result is generational poverty, with nearly 17% of Kentuckians living below the poverty line and some counties exceeding 25%. Household income tells the same story. Kentucky's median household income is just $57,000, ranking 47th in the nation, while workforce participation remains stuck at 58%, far below the U.S. average. Many families survive on food stamps, disability checks, and government aid. Healthcare access continues to erode. Since 2010, Kentucky has lost 12 rural hospitals, leaving residents in mountain towns over an hour away from emergency care. Life expectancy is 4 years below the national average, and the opioid epidemic ranks among the worst in the country, claiming over 2,100 lives annually and draining billions in public resources. Education struggles compound the crisis. Only 27% of adults hold a bachelor's degree or higher, and rural schools face low graduation rates and outdated facilities, driving young talent out of the state. Kentucky's economy remains over-reliant on declining coal and tobacco industries, with limited new investment. Infrastructure needs continue to mount, with 1 in 10 bridges structurally deficient and rural broadband still patchy. When the next recession hits, Kentucky risks the economic abandonment of entire regions, pushing the state closer to systemic collapse. Number 8. Arkansas, a quiet crisis, ready to explode. Arkansas may not dominate national headlines, but it is one of the 10 U.S. states most likely to collapse first if the economy crashes. With a median household income of just $53,000 and nearly 15% of residents living in poverty, many Arkansans face daily financial struggle, especially in rural areas where jobs are scarce, businesses are vanishing, and healthcare is far away. Healthcare access is one of the state's most pressing issues. Arkansas has one of the highest uninsured rates in the nation, leaving over 200,000 residents without coverage. Since 2010, 10 rural hospitals have closed, forcing some residents to drive 50 miles or more for medical care. Medical debt remains a leading cause of bankruptcy. Education is another major weakness. Fewer than 1 in 4 adults hold a bachelor's degree, while rural schools are underfunded and plagued by teacher shortages. Without an educated workforce, Arkansas struggles to attract high-paying industries. Economically, Arkansas is over-reliant on a few key sectors. Walmart is the state's largest private employer, but automation and cost-cutting threaten thousands of jobs. Agriculture and manufacturing still dominate, but profits are shrinking due to outsourcing and global trade instability. Infrastructure is failing too. Nearly 40% of rural residents lack reliable broadband, cutting them off from modern job opportunities. With 45% of state revenue coming from federal transfers, Arkansas is dangerously dependent on Washington's spending. When the next recession hits, Arkansas's slow-motion decline could accelerate into full economic collapse, leaving rural communities stranded and services overwhelmed. Number 9. West Virginia, the first state likely to collapse in a recession. West Virginia is one of the 10 U.S. states most likely to collapse first if the economy crashes, serving as a grim preview of long-term economic decline. Once the powerhouse of America's coal industry, the state has seen coal jobs plummet by more than 75% since 2010, leaving tens of thousands unemployed. With no major industry to replace coal, West Virginia now relies heavily on low-wage service jobs and federal aid, with over 35% of its budget funded by Washington. Nearly 20% of residents live in poverty, far above the national average, and the median household income is almost $15,000 below the U.S. median. Labor force participation has collapsed, with only 54% of working-age adults employed or even looking for work. The state also leads the nation in opioid overdose deaths, devastating families and draining billions from public health resources. Population decline accelerates the crisis. West Virginia has lost over 100,000 residents since 2010, and young people continue leaving for better opportunities in states like Texas and North Carolina. The population that remains is one of the oldest in the country, putting immense pressure on pensions, healthcare, and the tax base. Infrastructure is crumbling, with thousands of bridges and water systems in critical condition. With razor-thin reserves, any recession or federal budget cuts could push West Virginia into full economic collapse, making it a prime example of which U.S. states will collapse first when the next crisis hits. Number 10. Mississippi, the poorest state most at risk of collapse. Mississippi ranks dead last in nearly every major economic measure, making it one of the 10 U.S. states most likely to collapse first if the economy crashes. With a median household income of just $48,000, nearly $22,000 below the national median, millions of families are living paycheck to paycheck. Poverty is entrenched, with nearly 20% of residents below the poverty line and some rural counties exceeding 35%. The state's labor force participation rate is only 56%, the lowest in the country, signaling not just unemployment but widespread economic disengagement. Mississippi's education system consistently ranks 51st nationwide, pushing talented young people to leave the state permanently, further draining its workforce. Healthcare outcomes are equally alarming. Mississippi has the highest infant mortality rate in the nation and one of the lowest life expectancies, with residents living 5 years less than the U.S. average. Rural hospitals continue to close, leaving entire regions without access to emergency care. With 14% of residents uninsured, a medical emergency often means financial ruin. Infrastructure is crumbling. Nearly 1 in 4 bridges are structurally deficient, and the state faces a multi-billion-dollar backlog in road and water system repairs. Jackson's repeated water crises highlight just how fragile these systems are. Mississippi's budget reserves are razor-thin, relying on Washington for more than 40% of funding. The next recession or federal budget cuts could trigger a systemic breakdown of public services, making Mississippi one of the first states likely to collapse in a major economic downturn. America's economy is changing faster than ever, and these 10 U.S. states most likely to collapse first if the economy crashes are already showing warning signs. From pension crises to collapsing infrastructure, skyrocketing poverty, and population flight, the next recession could push some of these states past the breaking point. The big question is, do you think your state is prepared for the next economic downturn? Or could it be the next to collapse? Tell us what you think in the comments. We read every one of them. And if you found this breakdown eye-opening, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss tomorrow's update. We bring you new videos every day at the same time, breaking down the biggest economic risks shaping America's future. See you in the next video.